We are going to talk about threads. Okay, so what are all the beneficial by using this thread, and what are all the key factors involved while programmatically use this thread? Okay, so let's jump into the actual details. What is thread? Thread is the lightweight process. In other words, we can say unit of process. Okay, that is responsible to run certain amount of logics. Okay, so in programmatically, if you're creating the thread, so in the execute method, you write some logics. Okay, so when you start that particular thread, those logics will be get executed. So likewise, you can create multiple threads. Okay, you can write your own logics over there on the each thread. So when you start those threads, so those logics will be executed. So these threads which means you are creating one thread, two thread or three thread. So those all three threads will be running independently in the process. Okay, so let's talk about process. What is meant by process? So in day-to-day life, we are working with these systems with the many applications. So each application has its own process. So if you go to this task manager in the process window, so you can see what are all the processes are running. Let's say Google Chrome, Word, Notepad, and media players. So all its own process, okay, which consume some memory. So this is in the OS level. We can say these project processes are distinguished and they are running simultaneously in independent manner. Okay, so let's jump into thread life cycle. Okay, so what is this thread life cycle? So when you're creating that thread, so that time the thread state will be unstarted state. Okay, then when you start it, it will move into runnable state. Okay, and during that runnable state, you can either suspend that particular thread or you can abort the thread. So when you abort it, that thread will go into dead state. Okay, so again, you can make it the runnable thread to suspended state, and from there you can again resume it. Okay, so likewise, this is the thread life cycle. So let's see some programming example in C Sharp. Okay, so you see in void main, we can create the thread by using the new keyword. You can create a thread. This is the thread object. Okay, so it has some method. Okay, that is some method. So what that is doing, that is a simple for loop. It will print this sum method. Okay, so this is how we can create the thread. Okay, so once you create it, you can start the thread using dot start method. Okay, so initially it will give you unstarted state. So now you are starting the thread, so it is running. So you can suspend that running thread using the suspend keyword, and again you can resume that suspended thread back. So after this keyword, it will be again in the running state. Okay, so if we want to abort or terminate, you can use this abort method. You can terminate that particular thread. Okay, so what will be the output? You see, so initially it was in the unstarted state, and then it is running by using the start keyword, then suspended using suspended keyword, then it is running by using the resume method, then we are aborting the thread. So this is the life cycle of the particular thread. Okay, so this is the single threaded programming. So likewise, you can create a number of threads. So you can simultaneously, independently start the thread. Okay, so let's look at what is thread synchronization. Okay, so in the concept of synchronization, say example, you have three threads, so which you want to run simultaneously, but which should not affect the one another. Okay, so how we can manage this synchronization? Okay, say example, I took this example. So this is thread one. I'm creating thread one. I'm naming that thread 1. by using name, and again I have thread 2 and thread 3. So there are three threads I have, which is calling the same method. Okay, so now I am starting each thread dot start. Okay, and here in this sum method, okay, so when you start it, this method will be get called by each thread. So we have this locking mechanism. Okay, locking the shared resource for the thread synchronization. Okay, so there is a lock object. We have created the lock object here using new object. So this is the lock object. Okay, so we are locking it. Okay, and we are printing these things. Okay, so what happens when the first thread it will calls, it comes here and it will lock. So again this thread 2 cannot be use this resource. Okay, so likewise third thread will not cannot be use this resource. Okay, so until unless it this block of code get executed. Okay, so example, the thread 1 comes, so it is utilizing this block. Okay, so until then this thread 2 cannot be used. So once this code is get completed, okay, this two line of code get printed, then only the thread 2 can access. Likewise, when you're using this thread 2, thread 3 cannot be accessed this block of resource because it is locked. Okay, and once it is get released, then only thread 3 can be access this block of code. Okay, so this is how the synchronization locking the resource concepts works. Okay, let's jump into the thread priorities. What is thread priority? So thread we can prioritize. There are five states of priorities. You see lowest, below normal, normal, above normal, highest. Okay, by default all thread will be under the normal state. Okay, but if you want to set up the highest priority to the thread to be get prioritized, you can set like this. So if you want to set lowest, you can set it. Okay, so what happens when you set this three I mean priority? So I took this example. Let's say I have three threads. Okay, so first thread, i am I am specifying the priority as a normal. Second thread, I am specifying the priority as lowest. Third thread, I am specifying the priority highest. Okay, now I am starting this all thread 1, thread 2, thread 3, start. Okay, so what happens? So which thread will go with the highest priority? Which one, which thread can use this block of code? First, thread 3, because we set the priority is highest to the thread 3. Okay, so this block of code first utilized by thread 3 followed by other thread. Okay, so now this normal and lowest we set it. Okay, so ideally the second priority will goes to the normal, and third at least only the thread 2 will be get executed. Okay, you can see the output. So output, you can see thread 3 first get utilized because it is the highest priority. We can see the thread 3 get printed, printing 0 1 2. Okay, then you see it is in the confused state like thread 1 or 2, because this is totally depending on the OS. Okay, so the OS which you are running up backgroundly. So each process which I told earlier, each process has its own priority. So based on that, it will take up this process and independently run it. Okay, so in the long run only we can see the correct results by setting up these thread priorities. Okay, because of you are backgroundly running a lot of processes in your OS. So that's why it's become bit confused state. Okay, so thank you guys. So I will upload a lot of resources regarding to the C sharp topics. So please stay tuned for keep on watching. So if you like my video, please subscribe, share, and stay tuned. Thank you.